For those of you who don't know, I'm Kevin Cruz. I'm the founder and CEO of LEADx. I'm fighting that cold that's going around. Wave your hand if you've been fighting it too. I'm about day 10. Angel, yeah. Like I hear it's a 3-week thing. So if I go off camera to cough and blow my nose, apologies in advance. And today's a special program. I'm going to mute David Bowie. Uh, we've got the reveal of our annual leadership development benchmark report. It's going to be interesting to see the data, the snapshot, but also many of us have been coming together for a few years now, so we'll see some trends as well. We always like to do at least one short breakout. Building your social network, your social capital, your relationships is so important. Career-wise, there's that old saying, dig your well before you're thirsty. And so we just love to kind of carve out this time for you to meet, 2 or 3 other new folks, your peers in the industry, become LinkedIn buddies, and share some thoughts. So we are going to do that and share out some of your reports, with a wrap up. And a reminder, this is invitation only for those of you who completed the benchmark survey. Thank you very much for doing that. Next month, we actually have our quarterly sort of VIP and client meeting. We've got Kim Scott coming to talk about her latest book, and everyone that joins that will be getting a copy of her book. And without further ado, let me also introduce my co-host. You know him, Director of Sales Training Development from Hologic, Dwayne Bess. Dwayne, how are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing, my friend?
Good. It's been a long time. I feel like every day for a month, I'm like, I got to call Dwayne today, and then the day kicks my butt and I don't do it. So, how's life in general? What have you been working on these days?
Life as well. Life as well. Actually, I'm actually taking a page out of your book, no pun intended. And I have these little jacket jewels that I've accumulated over the course of the years, where I look back even when my first sales leadership roles, where I have these books of all this knowledge that I've accumulated. I'm kind of synthesizing all of it to say, what are these learnings over the past 24 years, and what kind of resonates most. So I'm actually trying to do something with all that information to put it into something. I'm going to call it Jacket Jewels. So we'll see what
I
happens.
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dwayne, I hope you share it out in real time so we can all benefit and kind of builds your audience for that too. I think a lot of us enjoy the jewels you leave on LinkedIn anyway. So this is a cool project.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. You inspired me, Kevin. You inspired me.
I don't know about that, Dwayne. Dwayne, is there something in particular from this annual benchmark survey? I know you've been with me now for a couple of years doing it. Anything you look forward to?
Honestly, and maybe it's just my lack of my memory, but it seems like I was really interested in the swing on the Kirkpatrick model. Maybe my memory served me incorrect, but it seems like more people are getting to that level 4 and even higher than I thought, which is a beautiful thing for the industry and these functions. So I'm just eager to dig into that.
Yeah, and it's a great call out. Early call out is the numbers moving in that direction, and everyone's claiming that's going to be their focus this year. And I hope we've got a great mastermind on this call right now. So for those of you who have already done level 3, level 4 stuff, I hope this gets you ready to answer whether with your microphone on or in the chat, because I think people are going to really look for some help and advice on how to get there. Dwayne, we're going to dive in, but before we do the benchmark, we like to do free stuff. We like to do announcements. We like to get a little crazy. And I don't know how many people are in, a little over 60 right now. You heard it officially here first. We've been teasing this. Our Chief People Officer, Dr. Travis Bradbury, is announcing tomorrow his new book, Emotional Intelligence 3.0. Now, it's being announced tomorrow. It doesn't come out until May 6th. Most of you are probably familiar. If you've been in a bookstore in the last 10 years, you've probably seen his 2.0 book in the Hudson booksellers. It's been the #1 EQ book for about a decade. And so 15 years in the making, he's finally got the new version out, 60 brand new EQ strategies, and a brand new assessment. And this assessment is important because EQ assessments, including 2.0, the self-assessments were pretty easy to game. I mean, your participants aren't supposed to, it's developmental. But if you just click fives down the row, it can look like, oh, I've got great EQ, everybody. Well, he's come up with this new assessment that varies the optimal responses. So you can't really as easily fake the system. So it's going to be, more accurate in terms of that self-assessment than ever before. So we want to give all of you a free copy of Emotional Intelligence 3.0 when it comes out in May. And the way you can get it is help us to validate his new assessment. So the assessment is done, but we need to gather data to create the norms and the validation report. And so if you go to leadx.org/EQ3, and I'm sure Evan's going to drop a link as well. There we go. And if you want to copy that passcode, you could open it up in a tab right now and come back to it. You could take a picture of this with your smartphone, but you'll be doing everybody a favor by contributing to the original research and the validation report. And then we're going to send you a new copy of his book in May. And what's important about that is, if you'll remember from his book, in the back is going to be an envelope where you can tear it open and get a new code to retake the test. Because you're going to see, while the scoring is accurate, you'll see a score report there. It's still beta. There's still more to do. The report's going to be enriched, but you get to see it first here now, and then take it again in May when we send you the book, and get a double out of it. Pretty cool, huh, Dwayne?
You're always giving some great stuff out, my friend. That is pretty awesome, especially to be able to contribute to it.
Yeah, well, I say that free stuff, and I say it with a wink, right? Because like we're getting a lot. We think this community is helping each other, and just by everybody taking that assessment, it's going to really help that project. One last free thing, Dwayne, and then we'll move on to that report. So most of you, and Dwayne, I know you know this, we launched our LEADx EQ Habits workshop. Travis calls it the only EQ program he recommends, because everybody gets an executive coach for 12 weeks. We offer unlimited free retests, and it's the only one that's based on his material. We've got 2 upcoming free workshops. So many of you did our 6-hour free workshops, and many others said, we can't commit to 6 hours. It's too big of a time commitment. So now we're offering in March and April 2 1-hour versions. So this would be like the executive overview format, completely free. Just email evan@leadx.org and pick which date. That's 11 to 12 Pacific. Which date you want to be signed up for, or DM them in the Zoom chat right now. But March 11th, April 2nd, completely free. Come in and check out the EQ executive format. Get the workbook, the job aid, the app, the coaching, all on us. All right, Dwayne, you already did the 6 hours, so you don't need to come back for the 1 hour.
You know what I appreciate? I appreciate that you all had a pretty cool badge to go with this.
There it is. Get yourself a nice digital badge, pop it on LinkedIn, and let people know that you know your EQ, right?
That's right. That's right.
They can't mess with you. They can't fool with you.
Spidey senses, man. Spidey senses now.
Spidey senses. That's right. I love it. All right, let's get into this. So, hot off the press, Leadership Development 2025 sets its focus on behavior change, which is why I picked Changes from David Bowie. Great song, always makes me think of the movie Shrek, which is one of the best movies of all time. I'm sure you all agree. Shrek was very good. So the focus is really on behavior change. Now, there's been interest in it in the past, but it was off the chart this year. So let's just start diving into this. Before we talk about staffing and budget, I want all of you to think about this. How many people leaders do you have in your organization? Managers, supervisors? How many people leaders do you have? You might want to put it on a piece of paper. How many L&D professionals in your department do you have that are focused on leadership development? Now, maybe you're the only person in L&D, so maybe it's 1/4 of your time, 0.25. Maybe you got 5 people dedicated to it. But think about that number. How many people leaders do you have? How many L&D professionals do you have? And here's, now this survey, by the way, completed by 144 companies, 144 L&D departments, leadership development departments, I should say. Average company size is 5,600 employees. The median number of managers was 700. So we had giant companies, small companies, but that was sort of the average. And this is what came back. One leadership development professional for every 233 managers. Now this dropped again. So staff was cut by 13% over last year. And 2 years ago, we were at one leadership development professional for every 89 managers. So it's way worse than 2 years ago. If you aren't afraid of a little bit of math and you want to know how you compare to this benchmark, you could just take your phone calculator and put in how many people leaders, do you have in your company, divide that by 233, and that's how many the average number of leadership development managers you should have. And if you've got more than that, good for you. If you've got less than that, use this data to go ask for another head count. Use it to bolster your request for more. And I'm curious, whether anyone wants to unmute or just type in the chat. Like, this did not surprise me. I mean, 2 days ago, another one of our dear clients and friends, they just renewed their contract and said, sorry, I'm going to introduce you to someone else. Our whole department was let go. And so we're still hearing it. It's not as bad as it was 2 years ago, but we're still hearing it. What's everyone else hearing? Dwayne, what are you hearing out there?
Sort of the same thing, doing less with more, looking at leveraging AI and other things instead of human beings to do the job, I've also seen even talking to peers, more of a shift from people development to just the bottom line and, the non soft skills, if you will, of people development, more on the hard skills, if you will.
So just refocusing on the core stuff. Yeah. I see Courtney, thanks for playing. International Paper said half my team was restructured in November. That is sad. James from Rivian, you need to do less with less. Yeah, and the team at the old company was recently let go. And I'm not trying to make a political statement with this, but I will say that when you look at the headlines of cuts in federal government, cuts in Silicon Valley, Zuckerberg saying we're gonna fire 10% of Facebook, not because they're bad or that we're having financial problems. We just want to raise the bar. There's like no real good reason. It's time to cut 10%. So this is giving like cover for CEOs, for senior leaders who feel like they can push people even harder, that we maybe were too empathetic, too soft, too accommodating coming out of COVID. Brad, yeah, please join us.
Yeah, my question on this one was how you think people are defining leadership development professional, as in like that's their main title. Would you include the person that like if you're a leadership development consultant, but you have a manager who's also doing some leadership development stuff? How do you think people were defining that term?
Yeah, Brad, good question. I'm not sure, and I don't know if we gave help defining it in the actual survey. I think we did make a comment about using a partial head count for how much someone's time is devoted to leadership development.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that, okay, we got 10 hours from Christine over here. That's a 0.25 head count. We got, 4 hours over here. That's a 0.1. But whether or not anyone took it that seriously or did it, I don't know. Yeah. Krish has mentioned also consistently been shrinking a bit each year, and it has been 6 years. So yeah, and so this is just head count, and then of course we're seeing the same thing. Of course, it flows through to the money, the budget, right? So another 15% drop just since last year. So we're right now, average spend per manager on leadership development is $266. Now, we don't have it on this slide. We were at $1,100 3 years ago. So we've continued to drop from $1,100 per manager all the way down to 266. Not a good time to be in our line of business, right? The wins have not been in our sales. All right, moving on to hopefully some less depressing news, Dwayne. Come on. Okay, so this is where the focus on behavior change, really comes. What metrics will be most important to measure for your team's success in 2024? And boiling it all down, about 31% said behavior change. And let's face it, you're not usually asked to measure behavior change. Right? It's completions, butts in seats, other kinds of things. And of course, at LEADx, we've been we beg people to measure behavior change. We're all about focusing on that post-program support, habit building, et cetera. Even kind of loftier than behavior change, still got 25% saying focus on retention, turnover, pipelines, promotions, employee engagement. So that's, getting to that level 4. So more than ever, people are going to be focusing on these higher levels of the Kirkpatrick pyramid. Dwayne, what I wonder though, looking at that is, as of today, most people aren't doing level 4s. So as your point, there's a renewed interest in level 3s and 4s. And I'm curious, is there anybody on the call here that can share your own journey, starting or implementing efforts, activities to start going beyond just the reaction and the learning? For anyone on the call that's doing level 3 measurement, level 4 measurement, that can kind of share how you're doing it or which programs you're doing it for.
Hi, Kevin. This is Renee Hensley.
Hi, Renee.
I can comment. One thing we're doing a little bit more of, and kind of in the leaning into what you were saying, with the downsizing, budgets aren't as big in other areas as you'd like to. So this last year, we did do with our team we were able to prove out a really good ROI for doing some internal video recordings of webinars that turned into diabetic cooking shows, because we're in the healthcare, and we had to do all the media for it. So we did the green screens and the actors, and we pulled from our employee base. And so we really were able to say we did an ROI that was able to show if we had to hire outside, what it would have cost and what we did with what we had. So we had 350 hours, and we used a loaded, employee salary and the time it took for all the different areas. So it was just kind of cool. And we don't do it for everything. We pick and choose, and we had about 3 or 4 out of about 94 projects that L&D is involved in that we actually were able to measure.
That, first of all, that's a lot of projects, and it's great looking to get that business case for that budgetary expenditure. And it reminds me, in the early e-learning days, that would be often the easiest thing would be to say, hey, we could fly everyone into the home office for 5 days at this expense, or create this e-learning and send it to them. Quality, is it the same? Is it not? But certainly, making that business case for that budget is key. Michael, can you willing to unmute your mic and chat a little? Oh, and we've got Krisha also. Evan, I'm gonna let you moderate on these.
Hey, yeah. So some of the things that we're working on right now is we've launched a new program that is being piloted in 10 of our markets that is specifically for our retail leaders. So I work for the Home Depot, and with that, we have tied back and mixed in some of our functional skills with our leadership skills. And the leadership skills tie heavily in with how do you lead and drive accountability within your associates to deliver on the business results. And so when we think about the business results, we're looking at, at the end of the day, we talked about on-shelf availability. And that truly means, do we have the product on the shelf so the customer can pick it up? What is the lag metric of that immediately following, 6 months following as well? Did we improve on-shelf availability? Likelihood to shop again. That's customer appreciation of coming into the store. And we teach that, and we teach people how to coach it and give feedback around it. And so we've taken these high metrics that tell us that we're going to improve our sales, tied it back to the content that we're selling, and are working in between the business metrics and the leadership metrics. So we know they enjoy the content. Yeah, that's great. But how are we actually showing up at the bottom of the P&L? And one of the ways that we've been able to do it is we had a senior leader walk in and she was talking to one of our department supervisors. And think of this is someone who manages maybe the paint department at Home Depot, and asked them about their business. And this department supervisor was able to tell them the size, scale, scope of their business, what their on shelf was, their metrics were, what they're doing to improve their abilities with their team. And she goes, "Where did you learn this?" And she said, "Home Depot University." And so, and my leaders are coaching back to this, and they're being taught how to coach and role play. And so that's what we've done is we've said, leadership is functional, functional is leadership. And you've got to be able to blend those two. And if you can't measure it on the P&L, as Whoopi would say, you're in danger, girl.
Yeah, yeah. Now, Michael, I love this. The aligning to what the C-level cares about, right? To the metrics that are being shown is so critical. I think we all can be doing a better job, and you're showing like shelf availability. People care about that, and you're teaching it. Have you already done, or have you thought about, like, have you ever looked at, hey, what is the shelf availability of these products or certain categories before and after they've gone through the training program? Maybe, like, I don't know a lot about, retail space, so maybe that's impossible to really measure in that way. But is there any way to see that movement of the needle?
We actually slice it both ways, or two different ways. One is on shelf, if we're doing the on shelf availability, so product on the shelf, what was it pre and post? So we're seeing the improvement after the intervention. But we also are saying, what is the difference between a comparable store? So if store A is in this pilot market and store B is similar in all of our metrics and measures, when we think about engagement, size, in sales dollars, we look at those two and we say, is one doing better than the other? And the answer is yes. The stores that are in the field are doing better. It does take some time. So, Home Depot is massive, but as you were thinking of, 1% lift for us is about $130 million in sales across the organization.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing. Megan, did you want to contribute something? Megan last? No? Yeah.
I think I'm just doing a lot of smiling. No, I didn't have my hand up.
Okay. Sorry about that. Awesome. Krisha?
Well, Michael's going to be growing his team. That's
I think so.
Right? That justifies like why you need L&D. Yeah. That's awesome. A little bit softer, but we have been doing a leadership, an emerging leaders development program since 2016. And it was the first effort, really. Most of what our L&D, I should have said before that, all of what we focused on was management. And we are big. So it's a big challenge anyway, but we decided to do an individual contributor, aspiring individual contributors kind of program, and they have to apply, et cetera. And so we have not gotten to the point where we do a pre assessment survey, but we definitely survey the managers as well as the participants at the end of the program. And it's a pretty thorough survey about the 4 areas of competency that we are working on in the program. And we ask, the managers, not only are you seeing a difference in this employee, but in those 4 areas. So it's communication, collaboration, influencing change, and problem solving. And so, again, these are folks who are across every kind of job you can imagine in a, birth to cradle to grave kind of healthcare situation. So you could have someone who's a nurse, you could have someone who's a housekeeping aide, you could have someone who's a finance accountant, et cetera, in these roles. So it's a very, very diverse group of participants who self-identify and fill out the application, and we review that, et cetera. So, but we've not only then do that post-survey like that, we also track their promotions, interim assignments, promotions, and retention. And so that's what we've been doing for both 3 and 4.
Love that. Yeah, I think we might even have a slide on the emerging leader focus and that those promotions and retentions. To me, that's the real purpose of the emerging leader programs. It's show your top emerging talent that you care about them and get them to stick around longer. So I like to see those numbers.
And we have been doing that kind of tracking of retention and promotion for our potential programs for, we have have had a diversity program.
Yeah.
And also for our chief nursing, it's sort of like a pipeline program for creating promotability into our chief nursing executive role. So from kind of the director mid-level to our senior nursing roles in a similar kind of way.
That's great. Thank you. Let's take a look at some other stuff here. So in the chat, just type it in. What is your #1 challenge to achieving your leadership development goals in 2025? What are you trying to accomplish this year, and what's going to get in the way of that? What do you wish you had more of? What obstacles do you wish would get out of the way? Type it into the chat. Changing priorities. Story of my life. Money. Well, we're getting creative, Catherine. We got some emojis here. Flying money. Clarity from executives. Institutional alignment. Competing priorities. The theory that AI solves it all. It doesn't, Michael? I didn't know that. No clear guidance. Oh, wait, look at all the priorities. Budget cuts. We want to accomplish more. Manager effectiveness, accountability, clarity, priorities, competing priorities. A theme is emerging. It's almost as if they completed the survey, Evan, because here's what we got. 3 major challenges going into 2025. Limited resources, competing priorities, lack of leadership buy-in and accountability. I like, Corey, the way you say that, the long tail of return on investment on leadership development. Yeah, it's pretty clever because it's not like we're launching a new product. You need to know about this product to go sell it next month. The ROI is over a longer lifespan. So that's good. Yeah, absolutely. So, again, these are not new. We've been, LEADx is 8 years old, and these have been the big ones. Not enough budget. Not enough time, not enough headcount to reach everyone. And of course, we've been one to make the argument that when resources are more limited, that a shift to digital solutions, to scalable in the flow of work solutions might solve some of your problems. But we don't think it's, for every situation.
Now, Kevin, those are the 3, but has the pie shifted at all the past year or two?
That is a good question, Dwayne, and a better man than me maybe knows the answer to that. Evan, do you? If Evan doesn't know off the top of his head, I bet during the next breakout we could look at that shift from the last couple of years' data. We didn't look at that trend.
I'm pulling it up now, and we'll get back to it.
Awesome, Evan. Good question, Dwayne. But we're going to the topic that I also am always interested in is what's the hot topics for all of you this year? Is it going to be coaching for the X year in a row? It always seems to be coaching. Is it going to be something else? We saw DEI go from a top 3 down to the bottom of the list last year. Dwayne and I, we were talking about that. Where is it going to land on this year's list? But before we do the reveal, we want all of you to meet a couple of new friends or say hi to some old friends and share, what specific topics will you focus on in 2025, and where does DEIB fit into your training this year? Is it business as usual, same as usual, emphasizing it more? You're being asked to de-emphasize it, any programs changing? And we're just going to do a real short one, and then you can bring your answers back into the main room and we'll reveal what the benchmark survey says. All right, well, welcome back, everyone. So this is the interesting thing that jumped out to me about this is the topics, what's the focus for the year? What's the theme of the year? Now, I was almost embarrassed that #1 was emotional intelligence because we've been beating that drum now here at LEADx for the last 9 months. And so maybe it's like, maybe we've influenced the survey takers. I'm not sure. But it's obviously always been a popular topic. And it does seem to be gaining new steam. And I don't know if that's in reaction to AI. You know, when every device on your desk has a genius IQ, it isn't going to be, you know, your IQ that wins. It's going to be EQ. But the other amazing thing is that DEIB did not even make the top 10 list. And Dwayne, I remember, so 2 years ago, it was at the top of the list. It dropped a lot last year. And I, with gallows humor, said like, oh, well, maybe because we've solved all the problems and it's not a priority anymore. And now it's not even on the list. So I'll start with you, Dwayne, but I invite anyone in the chat or without the microphone. What do we make of this? What are we making of this?
You know, I think there's just a tremendous amount of influence, right? And I think my thoughts are the sole thoughts of Dwayne Best and no one else.
All right.
let me start with that. I believe that we've made great advancements when you take a look at diversifying thought and inclusion in the workplace. And I also believe that we've decided to broaden the scope of what it means as well, to be more comfortable with it and to justify some of our actions. So I think a lot of work still needs to be done, but I think we've made, great progress. And I don't think psychological safety, true psychological safety, truly exists to address some of the hardships that are still there. I think I was talking to in my other group. I made a comment and I said, it's kind of interesting. We get in these organizations, like all the organizations I've worked for, we'll do like the Gallup poll, and we'll say we're going to hire to this, and we're basically saying we want to hire people just like us, and that's what we do. And then when we notice that, we're like, you know what, our thoughts are so stale. What are we going to do? So then we try to create another initiative to get more diversity of thought and these other things, right? And then, so it's just interesting. I think there's still microaggressions. There's still unconscious biases. There's still all these things exist. And I think right now we're in a phase I think we're starting to Band-Aid a little more. And I still think that there's some battles that need to still be fought. My personal views of doing.
And I want to call Angel up here, but I also want to ask everyone's opinion on this. I'm genuinely curious if SHRM coming out, sort of taking a swipe last year against DEIB, did that influence budgets and decisions and priorities at all, or nobody cares what SHRM thinks? And is this just maybe legitimately, hey, we've slashed our budgets, our training budgets 75%. Anything that's not viewed mission critical is out, and it's just got lumped as that. I'm curious what you all think. Angel, take yourself off mute.
Yeah, I was sharing with our group that we've never really called it DEI. We've never put that label on it. Several years ago, when it was, a thing and people were really focused on it, we started down that path, and I'll credit our CEO because he was like, yeah, we're not interested in that. Well, let's talk about our culture. And this is who we are. So we've really woven it into our culture. We do have, activities and programs that have a DEI focus, but we don't call them that. It's never labeled in that way. We have, we do have a D&I council and associate resource groups, and the undertone of that is to weave it into our culture, but we make some pretty dedicated efforts to make it part of how we do the work that we do, how we engage and connect with each other. That's not perfect. There are issues, but by and large, that's the way we've done it.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. I see, Sarah, it's funny, SHRM has been out of the loop for a while, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm not sure what the influence it has anymore. And I would like to think that organizations still believe in diversity of thought and everything else, and will continue to do what they're doing, maybe with different labels, or gets embedded. And I'd like to hope that the fact that it's not showing up on this list doesn't mean it's not being done. Maybe it's being done in different ways without the council or without the spotlight on it that maybe we had on it in the past. But it will be interesting to see that. Yeah, the same issue. And then look at number 10. This is a first, huh? AI literacy. And this is something we're going to explore because, well, let me just throw it out there. I mean, should this be a leadership development topic? Should leadership development own the AI upskilling of leaders because it's so important? It's so critical to the job, or is that like, no, that's IT's learning department, or that's some other L&D function? Who should own that? Lisa, it's scary. We're going to have, I don't think Kevin is on the call today, but one of our clients, GE Healthcare, just created a new position, AI leader of leadership development or something. It created a new position just around teaching managers AI. And I find that fascinating. Right? So we don't have any money. We're slashing budgets, all this stuff, but we're going to create a new headcount and throw new resources into this. And we're going to get Kevin on a future community of practice event to hear, like, how the heck did he get this job? What's that job role look like? Should all of you be hiring for these roles or going up for those roles? I'm fascinated by that. And I'm also wondering, hey, Claire Coltzman, are you on this call and able to come on camera and unmute yourself?
Sure.
Hey, Claire, there you are. I thought I saw your name. I wanted to get to you before we hung up because you're on our side, the supplier, partner, consultant side, but of course, many years at Accenture. So you've got also that big organization feel. So far, like, what has jumped out at you with this benchmark survey? Any surprises? Any insights from your experience?
Well, I'll talk a little bit about what I mentioned in my group, but I can sort of see a thread, right? So there's limited resources, there's shifting focus and prioritization, and then people are sort of saying, well, we're going to kind of measure. And we're going to find out what has most impact. And I think and certainly, like, even very large organizations feel that in a different way, right? So I think if you're sort of sitting there and you're thinking, where do I actually focus and put my time on? I think if you put those three together, you've kind of triage your requests, and you kind of like stick to your kind of vision and your mission, and you make sure that senior leadership is aligned with that, and then you kind of take it to level 4 and things like that. Then and you're tied as closely to the business as you can. I think we all have to be doing that in times when times are tough. So I think that was my first thing. The second one, I always wonder why ethics is never on this. And I always wonder why it never hits like the top 10 of leadership development. And I think we are, with a future forward focus, we're emerging into a world where that is becoming increasingly important, whether it's with the discussion of inclusion and diversity, or whether it's about AI. So I would put a plug for ethics making this list. And I guess the third thing about measurement, I just scratched my head, like, why are we still talking about this 30 years on? Like, why can no one, effectively measure at level 3 and level 4? And having tried to kind of do it many times myself, I think my advice would be is like, find out what leadership wants. Don't do your measurement strategy separate and then bring it on a plate and say, ta-ta, here you are, like, I've proven the value of my program. Start with the stakeholders and really ask them what they value and what they want to see measured, because it might be more surprising than what you would think about, and then design a very tight strategy around measuring just for that.
Claire, let me ask you about that. And we always love thought partnering, because absolutely great advice. Like, go ask the stakeholders, like, what looks like a success to them, right? Like, what does good look like? And having said that, there was like this famous Steve Jobs quote where he said, if I would have asked people or you know, Henry Ford, if I went and asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse, not a car. And it's like, do your stakeholders, would they even know to ask for leadership development's impact on employee engagement or on sales or on whatever? Or because how often were you asked for those kinds of metrics? Aren't they thinking L&D? How many people got their certificate? How many people graduated?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think L&D departments in particular are obsessed with bums and seats. So that's the easiest thing to be
Right.
kind of talking about. So that's the language that they speak. And I've always found that there's a huge disconnect between the language that they speak and the language that the business speaks, or the service, or you know, whatever,
Right.
you know. So who is L&D to think that we have the best idea of what it is to measure? Like, it's really in service of what those leaders need to be doing. So if you kind of like ask a lot of questions and find out at the beginning, you should be serving whatever comes out of the business's mouth, because in some ways you're a corporate function. You're there to support the business needs. So, and the business should know its needs. So I think asking great questions, you know, challenging thinking, that's all part of, you know, being a great, you know, leadership and development practitioner. So, but I do think we need to listen more closely.
With all the programs you did in the last couple of years at Accenture, just ballpark, like what percentage of them would you do a level 3 or 4 on? If you weren't asked to,
I think level 3 is pretty high. I think level 4 is very, very difficult.
So the behavior change, that was pretty routine. Some kind of change post program.
Yeah, and I think
actual business
in
impact,
leadership
not
development, I mean, I would say like the gold standard for that would be like pre and post 360s or something like that.
Yep.
So it's not self-reported. It's, you know, it's not just from the manager, it's from the employee. So if you can do something like that, that's great. And I was just talking to Michael, who's in my group, and I was sort of saying the biggest thing is isolation, right? So how can you say, oh, well, it was my training program that caused the improvement in employee engagement? So like he had this amazing thing where he had 2 parallel organizations, like an A and a B, and you can do that. But that's very, very rare to actually to be able to do that. So it becomes very difficult to isolate the effects of your training program convincingly, which is why you need to talk to leadership about what they want to know about impact.
Yeah, that makes sense. Don't go anywhere, but we only have 2 minutes. Let me just hit with this. AI, 44% of leadership development professionals, all of you are using AI in your work. If you look at that technology adoption curve, so if you're using it now, you're still in the early majority, not necessarily an early adopter. If you don't start using it soon, we know next year it's going to be over here. You're going to be a late majority. So dive into AI yourself. Big jump year over year, 24% to 44%. And this is in your takeaway emerging leader programs continue to be popular, and we see retention, promotion, behavior change. I don't love these skills that are mentioned here. I'll come back to that why. EI, of course I do, but if you aren't already leading a team, if you're not already at a higher level in the organization, I wonder about using precious hours on some of these other topics. And last but not least, I just want to make sure you guys know that this is in the report. 100 companies name their top strategies for engaging participants, managers. Varner, this slide's for you. 17 of the best and most creative, you know, from manager orientation sessions down to real-time progress dashboards, ambassador programs, incentives for supporting development. We know the participants' manager is the #1 variable in whether they show up, pay attention, practice, and apply. So there's all kinds of ideas that have been gathered about how you can really enlist the support of the managers. Before we go, I want to thank all of you for filling out that benchmark. Claire, thanks for playing. Dwayne, send us out on some good notes.
I was muted. So my note and thoughts would be for this upcoming month. If you were to once again look at your actions and behaviors without the words that you're speaking, what would people say your priorities are? So once again, it's not the words that are coming out of your mouth, but just your behavior. So are your behaviors in line with what's coming out of your mouth? So something to think about for March.
Stay aligned for the month of March. I'll see everybody next month. Thank you again so much.